think I made it. Here we are. I almost cut myself out. Go figure. But here we are. And gosh, Larry, it is a pleasure to have you here on Live Talk with Becky Chernek tonight, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So thank you again. So before we get things started, for our dealers and viewers, I just thought it would be best to talk about maybe who I am. And some dealers obviously know who I am, but the new viewers and dealers that are maybe hopping on, maybe not so much. So I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training. Gosh, I founded my company back in 2001 when we first implemented menu selling in the dealerships across the country. And let me tell you something, I've worked with some of the best in the industry. I've worked with JM&A. And JM&A, if you're out there, thank you for everything that you have done for me and my career. I will always appreciate you guys. I love you guys, JM&A, good people. And I've worked with NCM, NADA, and have presented at their 20 groups. And boy, have we had some good times doing that as well. So I work with dealers mainly from the time that customer touches down on that dealership website. And now today, we're talking digital retailing. So what does that all mean? How does that all work? And then from there, connecting or bridging the gap, if you will, from online to in dealership and working with the salespeople on how that whole thing works in the desk, and then finalizing this transaction in the F&I office with either a hybrid, a single point sales associate, or your traditional F&I manager. And I really help to maximize those profits and really get dealers, successful, reduce the time it takes to put this deal together and reduce that CIT too while we're at it. So that's me in a nutshell. So we're talking about you, Larry. And let me tell you, I really do appreciate the fact that you've been on, you're here. And so we've got, I don't know, do you know Harry by chance?
I do.
Well, he wants to come on here with you. And I'm really not sure about all that. But anyway, so I do want to introduce you, Larry, to everyone here tonight. And you are the #1 top rated sales trainer in America. So why don't you tell us everything there is to know about you?
Sure. I was a salesman. I worked hard and was lucky enough to rise to #2 in the country for Cadillac. I became a partner at the dealership. When we sold the dealership, I helped someone. I want to emphasize help someone with recruiting and training. And I didn't like the way they did business, so I started my own company. That was 10 years ago. For several years, I conducted very interesting, if you'll allow me to use that phrase, training for sales and sales recruiting. I've been known to train 3-4 hours at a time, and instead of a stampede for the exit, I have to throw people out of the room. I am truly a believer that it's not the car business, that it's the people business. So I basically talk about everything you can imagine except the cars themselves. About 5.5, 6 years ago, a gentleman from Sarasota, a dealer, said, Larry, I sat down with my GM, and we've got 20 people on staff, very successful Ford dealer. And he said, 15 of them are your hires, and all top 10 guys and ladies are yours. Can you do anything with service recruiting? So, of course, being a salesman, I had a slightly tenuous grasp on reality and the truth. And I said, oh, of course. I had no idea. I reached out to my local headhunter, found out he was charging 8 to 12% of what a person makes a year. I thought that was exorbitant because people don't stay the way they once did. Narrowed my price down to a point that I thought was extremely fair for the dealers. And man, thank God I've got 170 ads running now for dealers. I can find techs, body shop techs, service advisors. And it's so funny because people think there's like some strange secret. I'm really not a technical person. If you paid me, I couldn't really tell you what an algorithm is, but I'm old school. I put ads in that make sense. I answer the phone. I try to be positive and upbeat, and I try to connect the dots. I'm really at a loss for how everybody on this planet has a cell phone. Some people have two, and nobody answers their phone. So just by doing simple things and having a lot of fun, I've been able to roll. As far as what success I've achieved or why I think my classes work, I have some news that might shock some of your viewers, maybe even you. We're all going to be dead one day. So to not go out and give your best shot every time is ridiculous. I just don't understand people that are waiting for something to happen or kind of giving, hey, well, I didn't really try or I didn't really think I could do it. The hell we have to lose. In 100 years, everybody on this call is going to be dead. So we need to turn up the volume. We need to have some fun. We need to put our hearts into things. And I'm sure everybody on this call knows that in itself is its own reward.
Well,
Right?
one thing I told you, I might interrupt you a couple times, if not some more times than not. But here we have Laura Berman, and I wanted to make sure that she reached out. She said hello to you. She said hello to me. Hey, Laura, good to have you. Glad you're on tonight with us.
Hi, Laura.
Larry, I could never really say Larry's last name, but you won't. But Larry, thank you.
It looks like Scharfstein.
Scharfstein. You know how to pronounce his. I'm sorry. I'm not the best. How about Scott Lawler? Hi, Becky. Thank you. Glad you can be here. We
Hi,
have
Scott.
Mike
Thanks for
Thompson.
tuning in. Hi, Mike.
Yeah. So, okay. So,
Becky, do you want to try pronouncing Mike's name? It's easier than Scharfstein. You can redeem
well,
yourself.
you know what? Thompson. I like it.
There
Thompson.
you go.
It's Thompson. It's not Thompson. It's Thomas.
Well, there's no P in there.
Yeah. So you got to forget the P's. So, all right. So you seem to really connect well to people at the dealership, and he said correct, by the way. So you really do a good job connecting with the people in the dealerships. What are you seeing happening as far as, right now we have more dealers who have been more successful ever, right? Now than they've ever been. Do some of these are these dealers? Do they have this blindfolders on? Are they understanding the idea behind why we do what we do as far as training and getting back to the basics, or is training just for the new hires? What's happening with this whole thing?
Okay, let me answer the question you asked and the question you didn't ask. You said I connect well. The reason I connect well, I want to connect well. Most of the things I've seen in life are you either want to do something or you don't. If you get up in the morning and you're pretty positive, you're going to have a positive day, right? I mean, if I call you up and say, Becky, you're not going to like this, you haven't even heard it, you already don't like it. As far as what's going on in a dealership, if you're a sports fan, I mean, we have the Super Bowl coming up. We've all seen our teams get a big lead and start coasting, and then they wind up losing. When you're really doing well, and all the dealers I'm dealing with, they're making more money than they ever dreamed of. When you're doing really well or doing really bad, that's the worst possible time to pull back. Now's the time to really double down, because at some point, this thing will flip back in a different direction. And you don't want people to get in incredibly bad habits. And as far as when should you train, let's lean on the master Zig Ziglar, who said, training is like bathing. I recommend it daily because it doesn't last.
Okay. So dealers are,
hey, Joe's on. Hey, Joe. I don't want you to feel left out.
Who?
Joe Caruso.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Joe Caruso. Sorry about that, Joe. Now, Joe is awesome too. So let me tell you what Joe did. Joe also sent me one of his books as well on closing. So speaking of which, okay, I'm glad we're here. Good call out. So should dealers be training on word tracks? What's up with that? There's a lot, and hear me out on this one. We have a lot of advocates out, many, who say word tracks, no, let's not do word tracks. Word tracks are for dummies. And, let's face it, the last thing you want your salesperson, or even F&I for that much matter, is to be robotic. Out. What do you think about all that?
I think the word tracks, they say one of the definitions of a great leader is you don't ask the people with you, under you, for you to do anything you wouldn't do. So if there's something you're uncomfortable with, why would you ask anybody else to say it? My concept is to make people think. So if you'll allow me, I'll answer again both sides of the question. My idea of a word track is I like when people say, welcome to Chernek Motors. I'm Larry Feldman. Here's my card. Yep, I still do cards. I carry 3x5 cards. I love to say, can I ask your name? Or your names if it's a family. Can I write it down? I'm terrible with names. Most people are terrible with names and they identify. And then my yes, no question is this your first visit to the dealership? Oh, great. What brings you in today, sales or service? Unfortunately, what you usually get for yes, no questions is, can I help you? Which immediately prompts no thanks. I'm just looking. It just doesn't seem to make any sense. What I like to do is give them enough food for thought so they get the direction I want to go. I tend to say this in class. If you've been to my classes, I'm sorry if I'm boring you. I like to talk about dogs a lot. I'm a dog lover. And I always say that if you point and you have a dog, your dog never looks in the direction you're pointing. He looks at your finger. So you have to make it very clear which direction you're going so you can pull other people with you, whether it's customers, whether it's your family. And just as an example to round out this circle, I got a recommendation, if I can mention his name, from a dear friend of mine, Tom Backer. He was affiliated with the Prestige Group. He ran a Volkswagen dealership in Stamford, Connecticut. We met, we became best friends. He was a little blown away that I taught for almost 3 hours, and he jumped in and said, who needs a break? And they said, nope, keep going. That's how nuts I am.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, what I always try to do is get people to think. So what I'll say in every class is this, and it's funny because Tom recommended me to a group and they put me in front of an inquisition panel. It was like 12 managers and the owner of the whole company, 4 stores. And I guess they thought, hey, let's see what this guy can do. So I went around the room and said, listen, I'm going to get your guys and ladies to think. So I asked every manager, Becky, every manager screwed it up. I said, what do you say to the guy or the lady that you come up to them on a Saturday and say, before you can open your mouth, they say, look at their watch and say, I only have 10 minutes. Don't even start with your sales pitch. I have to go watch my son play ball. I got it's just as dumb an answer from managers as I do from salespeople. Mm-hmm. I'm back later. I can do it in 10 minutes. Well, the right answer is, what does your son or daughter play? And if you text them in 2 hours, don't text them to say, I still have the car. Text them to say, how'd the next Serena Williams do? How'd the next Tom Brady do? We're terrible listeners. There's people in car dealerships that love sports more than I do. And somebody walks in wearing a Notre Dame hat and nobody's smart enough to say, did you go to the school or are you just a fan of the Fighting Irish? You were kind enough to put a clip on the website. The best thing is to listen, not to talk. Because if you talk eloquently and it doesn't connect or it ignores what they just told you, it's a waste of time. So the right word tracks make sense. Not robotic ones, not thousands of them. Just give them some kind of guideline and make it clear that you want them to grow out of it.
Okay. No, that certainly makes sense. You know, one of the things is that, especially, let's talk a little bit about this, desking and, you know, presenting a worksheet of some sort. Are you training on presenting some sort of a worksheet to customers? Is that
Sure?
Do you do that? What is that? What is that all about? Because let me tell you why I say that. And
okay.
I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm going to shoot you from my experience. Been in the stores myself. You know, I've been in many different dealerships all over the country, just like you. And frankly, I ask a salesperson to go ahead and present a worksheet to me, and frankly, they just can't do it. They're not that good at it. And or do they stumble over overcoming any objection. So I asked the sales manager, when's the last time you trained just on that piece alone on presenting that worksheet? Tell us, what are you doing as far as training up salespeople when it comes to any sort of presentation?
Okay. Again, thank goodness I've had a lot of success with my training. I've taken a lot of guys, ladies, and made them very successful. I've risen a lot up through the ranks and had to be managers. But I'll tell you, the most effective training I seem to have is when the managers at the specific dealerships spend a little time or a lot of time in the room. Because if I teach you very well or terribly, And there's no manager to agree to it and carry it on, or to say, wait a minute, Larry, I have a problem with that specific issue. Where are you going? There's got to be a buy-in. All this, anything you want to do, whether it's digital, whether it's walking through service, there's got to be a buy-in. A lot of things become cliches because they're true and they get repeated. If 5 of us in a rowboat and 4 of us are rowing one way and one's rowing the other, we go in a circle. So you need buy-in. The managers have to have some kind of concept as to what they want to do. They have to, again, it's the finger in the dog. They have to explain, this is why we're doing it. Hey, Joe, I know I'm beating you up to hold gross, but listen, we're going to give the people tremendous service. We're going to give them an experience better. You deserve that. If you stay in a 5-star hotel, it's more expensive than a 1-star hotel. But you have to explain, because a lot of times people start to work at a dealership, they get a little beat up because the managers are doing what they're supposed to do, which is hold gross, build value. But again, it's making it clear to people, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm trying to do. So again, whether it's digital, we were talking earlier, folks, and she was talking about how scary it is that some people still aren't doing service walks, or some of the things that seem so perfunctory and should be a part of everybody's schedule. But it's just because nobody's taking the time. Nobody's prioritizing. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. While I don't like overly long meetings and too many meetings, man, nobody can convince me that a little meeting every morning with whatever managers are in the store and whatever salespeople, what deals are you working on? The deal you made yesterday, I want to commend you on it. Is there anything we could have done better? It's just like everything else.
I don't mean to cut you. I don't mean to cut you off there, but I do want to hit home on this desking piece, because this is a piece to me that hits home, because I don't see. I want to talk about our desk managers training up their salespeople on how to present this freaking worksheet. Now, I don't really care what kind of worksheet you present or whatever that you do, but we talk about, well, maybe, we salespeople shouldn't have word tracks of or the other, or they should. But if they're going to present numbers to a customer, don't you think that they need to be consistent in how they do it? So like for me, when I train up finance, I train them on a menu presentation, 100% of the products, 100% of the time, to every customer all the time. I don't break it. I'm sorry. Maybe if a product doesn't make sense, like Gap, you can't present Gap, of course, if it's 20% more down payment. But other than that, it's 100% of the products, 100% of the time. So
Becky, it's like a service walk. You got to do the walk around every time, not once in a while, because it's a slippery slope.
Right. So how does that work? Because I feel like we aren't getting that job done in training salespeople just on that alone, on that worksheet, on presentation 100% of the time.
My suggestion is going to be an easy one. And my suggestion is, we all have a certain amount of vanity. We all like to be stroked a little bit. When I go into a dealership, I kiss their butts a little bit, but I tell them the truth. Listen, I can see already your guys look up to you. You're obviously accomplished, or you wouldn't be the GM, the GSM, the desk manager. I really like to get you involved in this. A, I want your input. And B, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Hey, you're paying me, your owner's paying me, somebody's paying me a lot of money. Let's make sure it's not wasted. It's the only way, because if you don't get them involved, I mean, let's face it, if you're training the managers and they're not training the salespeople at boondoggles, and for sure, if you're training the salespeople and the managers aren't on the same page, you wasted everybody's time and money.
Well, you know what? I see that happen a lot of times, even in my world, when a dealer or a GM will send their F&I person to, or a sales manager for that much matter, to my training. And then I wonder, are we all on the same page here? So when that individual gets back to the dealership, it's like, well, I'm not sure exactly what that whole thing is about. I'm not sure about that process, or the interview, meeting customers at a salesperson's desk in the middle of the showroom. But don't you worry about it. This is how we do it. And that's all you need to know. Why does that happen? Why aren't dealers taking a look at the training in what that person's bringing on board or before you send someone out, so that way you can endorse it and you can assure that it can be enforced. It just, ugh. It just, I just don't understand that so much.
I'll give you a dual analogy answer. I always like to quote Socrates: an unexamined life is one not worth living, which is you got to be looking in the mirror. I'm good. How come I'm not great? I'm not good. Why not? When I send people out, when I do a 2-day training, whether it's rookies or vets, in between this first and second day, I send them out to mystery shop, but not to say they want a car, to say they want a car for their sister that just had a baby. You would be astonished, or maybe you wouldn't, all over the country, instead of saying, "Congratulations, Becky. Is it a boy or a girl? Is it your first time being an aunt? That's wonderful. How many kids does she have now?" That's as much of a business question or social. No, instead, all over the country, their eyes drop. Well, why isn't she here? Because she just had a baby, stupid. Well, what's her credit like? What's your credit like? But I explained that that's not the scary part. The scary part is these morons, and I use morons in the most respectful way, go back to their desk, and it's like they forgot you even met them. They don't go back and say, "Gosh, maybe I could have been a little smarter. Maybe I could have asked them about the baby. Maybe I could have built rapport." The other thing is, I do tend to read the Bible and anything else I can put my hands on. And it does say in there, you have to take the plank out of your eye before you take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. I got a million friends that are managers. I respect them. It's a tough job. But before you criticize the salesperson for anything they're doing, man, look in the mirror and make sure you're doing the best job you can. Because understand, if a sales team is not doing well, they usually fire the manager. It's just like baseball, not the players. So it's really incumbent upon you to make them as good as possible.
So everybody, in order for us to really implement and put in whatever process that a dealer wants to put in, would you agree that everybody has to agree to it? That, this is something that we're going to think through, that, oftentimes I get invited to, obviously, to go into a dealership, and we work on what takes place in F&I. Maybe even dealers like, "Okay, I want you at the desk." Okay, I'm fine. Because they're submitting more deals up at the desk. So it's important for me to be there. But I'm like, okay, when are we bringing salespeople into this? When are we making sure that salespeople are a part of this process and they know what's going on in their store? I mean, they are the front line. And it just gets the best of me when, these are the guys that are out there on the lot when it's hot, it's cold, it's freezing cold. And we're not including them into this entire sales process. And
Becky, can I add one thing? You
why is
happen
that
to be
happening?
you happen to be completely correct. And think about one other aspect. Managers, by definition, should be managing. They should be correcting people, but they should also be building them up and pumping them up. Think how smart it is for a manager to say, "Folks, we have faith in you. You're terrific. We want to make you better. We want to make ourselves better. We're going to bring you in on what is normally just F&I training. You're important enough to this team and to this dealership that we want to get you involved from the ground up." Now the salespeople feel like, "Yeah, I'm a part of this team." This is honestly, this stuff's all so simple. It bothers a person like you or me because whatever faults we may have, we tend to be inclusive. We like to get people involved.
Yeah, I feel like if we're not, and everyone isn't on the same page as to the reasons what we want to accomplish, like Vince Bailey says, playbook every day, every way. Now, one of the things that I love, Vince Bailey and I used to work together with JM&A, and he also was a GM for some of the big stores here in the Southeast region, and really enjoyed working with Vince. He knows his stuff, and he's right. It is about everyone being a part of the team together, to synchronize together. So let's see what else we've got here. Harrison, leaders encourage. I'm glad you were able to be here, Harrison. I know you had a late deal, but I'm glad you're here anyway. So good. So I'm glad you're in the house. Yeah,
Becky, can I comment on something for Vince?
Absolutely, you can.
Vince, I agree with you completely. And I can get an affidavit on this if you don't believe me. Several years ago, not 2 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I was I was training a bunch of rookies, and it seemed like a lot of them were football fans. And we started talking. I'm a little older than the guys in the class, and I explained that ESPN has skewed their idea of what greatness is because all you see are who's new. I said, you guys keep hearing that Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. I disagree. And we'll find out how good he is without Brady. And I swear I said this 5-6 years ago. And I explained the greatest coach of all time is Vince Lombardi because he took a team that was 1-10-1 and won 5 out of 6 championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls. My pathetic Eagles, who finally won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, but we suffered in the desert forever. Our big claim to fame was we're the only team to ever defeat Vince Lombardi in the championship game. But the point is, everybody in the league, Vince will nod his head if he's on the screen, that everybody knew that they were going to run what's called the Lombardi sweep. They ran around the right side of the line, and nobody could stop them. And the reason, as Vince will tell you, is because they blocked and tackled. When you see a clip on ESPN of a guy throwing a 70-yard touchdown and a guy dancing around in the end zone, what they don't show is the guy that threw the block to give the quarterback an extra half a second. If you don't do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, everything else we're talking about goes by the wayside. So Vince, never met you. I'd love to one day, but I'm with you all the way, my buddy.
Okay, so yeah, he's good people. He knows his stuff, that's for darn sure. And he has managed some of the biggest stores in the Southeast as well. And he's been absolutely, terrific to work with over the years. Pay the salespeople on the back. I only want them to plant the seed. Now, here's what we're going to do. We are talking about something else here. We are going to go flip this over just a little bit. So I've had this conversation, and I have been called all sorts of name, people. I have been called absurd. I have been calling Chernek. She has no idea what she's talking about. So I got invited to talk about this particular topic on an auto live. Let's just keep it at that. And so I said, yeah, I think it is important to train salespeople on the idea of what a product is in F&I. I didn't say they have to sell it. Now, some dealers they have their sales associates who sell the product. I'm saying just endorsing and having a better understanding what goes on in F&I. I've had conversations with my Adam Aarons, who's a dealer principal at the Patriot Subaru, and he's very, very freaking successful. He knows his stuff, and a volume dealer. And Vince will tell you as well. I mean, he opens up the door when it comes to F&I. I mean, these guys know what's going on in the F&I. They understand the F&I process. They understand. Hell, they even talk about rates on the floor. So, I'm not saying we have to go all there, but I will tell you, I was called all sorts of names that is just absolutely ludicrous. We're not training salespeople on this product. That if you do, they're just going to give up the farm. Now, I want us to think through this, because if that is the case, who are we hiring? Is there no hiring practice? What's going on as far as this training? So I want to hear a few comments when it comes to this. So pay the salespeople on the back. I only want them to plant the seed. The other was we not even not pay our salespeople on the back end, but they not only endorse but are well versed on at least the vehicle service contract. And I got to tell you, the truth of the matter is that's the way I grew up in the business. I understood. Well, I might have gotten paid on the back end a little bit. I did. But at least I understood the benefit of the product. Then we have pay the salesperson on the back. I only want them to plant the seed. And then we have AJ and Company, on point, great topics, acknowledgement of importance for good or bad salespeople. And then we have a nice smiley face from, oh, no, we don't have a smiley face. We have like, are you kidding me face? And then we have a good Vince story enjoyed. Okay. And then we've got, if you hint pay anything on the back, I get their attitude, and then pay them on variable growth of the deal. What do we do here?
Oh,
You.
I'm assuming that everybody on this broadcast has been to the movies. And when you go to the movies, we all get tricked. We see a 2-minute clip, a teaser, and we go, I got to see this movie. And every one of us, I bet, has walked out of the theater and felt cheated because the only 2 good minutes were the minutes they had in the teaser. It's called foreshadowing. We show the best things. We don't want them to give away the store, but if we can explain to them that this is their money, remember, they're running their business within the owner's business with no debt service. You're in partners with a millionaire or a billionaire. But what's wrong with saying, yep, we've got really good in-house warranties. And by the way, since you told me how long you kept your other car, wait till my finance manager tells you some of the options you'll have. Heck, we can protect this car so long it'll take all the pressure off. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think keeping people ignorant of any part of this is damaging. It's damaging because the worst thing is when somebody thinks you're stupid, when they think you don't know. When I, again, just throw in some things. And when I train, I say, no, if you're in retail at a certain point in your career, you've said something, 2 or 3 things, and people look at you and you can see in their eyes, wow, Becky really knows her stuff. I always say when that happens to you, the next question they ask you that you would bet your life, your kid's life is 3.5. You know it? Don't say 3.5. Say, I think it's 3.5. Let me check. I only want to tell you things I'm sure of. Either take them to the computer or bring the book to them and say, yup, I checked. It is 3.5. But gosh, it's really important for me to tell you things I'm sure of. I like it when my customers trust me. Now,
I mean, isn't that everything? I mean,
yeah, but if every question they ask you, I don't know, I'm not sure, you look like a dolt. And if you're afraid of your salespeople giving the store away, that's your fault. And I don't mean to be harsh on managers. I love managers. I love sales. I love everybody. But the real world is the real world. And you want to have a team that understands what they're doing and how they're doing. If your team can't grasp that, I know this guy named Larry Feldman who can get you salespeople and train them properly. So it's not a problem.
well, I think that is something that has always been one of my pet peeves. I feel as if, and I work with sales managers and some of the best, and we've had this conversation, and they tell me, you know what? I tell you, Beck, I'd rather we just kind of left these guys kind of not knowing what's going on, and I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, so how do you expect them to support anything that's been sold? Or perhaps maybe the customer did make the decision to buy, they're like on the fence and they're like, well, I've only spent a couple hours with you, if not a couple days on this product. So, or buying this car from you. So maybe should I get that tire and wheel? What exactly is going on with that whole thing? Planting the seed, giving the customer a better understanding of the product to endorse it before and after, I think is critical. So we have Derek Sloan here. You get what you pay for. It's all about impacting the right behavior for the right outcome. Pay plans are awesome for job descriptions.
Absolutely.
Derek Sloan, he's the president of Simtech Dealer Services. And I had the pleasure of working with Derek Sloan several years back. And it was always a pleasure to work with you guys at Simtech Dealer Services as well. But you're right. I mean, if in fact you want to affect a change, do you do it with pay plans?
Listen, we're here to make a living. If the pay plan makes, I don't know any salesman or any sales manager. I don't even know any owners that don't work their pay plans. They basically put the message through. This is what we want to sell. If you tell a salesman we need to sell some of a specific model, okay. But if you tell them, listen, if you get 3 out this week, it's $50 cash or it's $3, whatever. All of a sudden, they're very motivated. I mean, if they're not here to make money, then you got the wrong salesperson for sure.
So we got Harrison who says this will close. Interview is key. Break the wall down. Tell them you're going to have all the information ready in just a few minutes and then come right back and get them.
He's right.
I don't disagree with the interview. I love the interview. I love making sure that I've got the information right to begin with, that I've done my fact finding, get a better understanding of the value of my products. But at the same token, I feel like 2 heads are always better than one. And I was brought up that way. I was brought up with an understanding of what the product did because I did plant the seed. I made sure that that customer truly had a better understanding of what that service contract, what that meant. So how they could protect themselves should they have a repair. Um, Even a rental car or any towing services, etc., roadside benefits, hotel, that sort of accommodations. I mean, really pays off in a big way. The worst thing that can happen is the customer buys that pre-owned vehicle from you, and then a month out, they're paying that $2,000 in the service department. How did they feel about you then? So I do my due diligence, and that's just the way I was brought up in the business. But I agree. I think that we definitely need to get out there and meet the customer on their terms, and get that transfer of trust between salespeople and that F&I person. So let's read more. I
Hey, Becky, can I build on just very quickly on what
Oh,
you and Harrison
absolutely.
said?
Yes,
Because
please.
you went down this road, you jumped off. If you're with somebody for an hour and a half and you've built rapport and value, they just met the finance guy, even if it was a small interview. You may have more weight than they do because they're the fresh face. It's almost like a TO coming in. If you've garnered their trust and built value, there's a lot of weight that can be placed on this in a positive fashion. It'd be kind of silly not to get the salesperson involved.
I would think so. I know it, we have to just do a better job in training up our sales staff and including them in the overall picture of what goes on in that dealership. So I wonder, how many F&I people are actually involved on a weekly basis, daily basis. So when I go into a store, I'm like, when's the last time you guys do sales training? I mean, actually sales training. Well, we've had sales training, Becky, when we do hiring. When was that? Oh, that had to be what, 6 months ago, a year ago? And this happens all the time. And it's like, why? And especially with this COVID, I mean, let's face it, COVID, we stopped doing some training here in the past 2 years. Yes? What are you seeing in your stores?
Well, the Olympics are on now. Now they're not getting the world's greatest audience turnout, but they're on, and you have the world's greatest athletes. They train every day for years in hopes of not losing a race by 100th of a second. The message is you should be training all the time, forever. And listen, the COVID thing is a convenient excuse. I've seen dealers that haven't trained for years and years before COVID.
That's true.
If you don't understand the value of listen, you could have the sharpest owner, the most beautiful building, a dynamite manager. But by the time you get to them, you get to touch them or interact with them, they've already been poisoned or been set up perfectly for you to finish what you have to do. Sales, and forget the fact that I'm a trainer and it's in my own interest. I don't care who you use. Training needs to be a part of your regimen. It needs to be automatic. It shouldn't be dull. It shouldn't be redundant. It shouldn't be a beat-up session. Obviously, everybody on this call, I hope, is smart enough to know that if you really have somebody screwing up, you take them aside. You don't do it in front of anybody else.
Amen. I tell you right now, I absolutely agree. And okay, so we have Joe Caruso. I agree if the salespeople are inadequate. That's the dealerships. I mean, that's management's fault, right? They're the ones who's making the hiring decisions. They got to do a better job training up their salespeople. And a little plug on me. Derek Sloan, thank you so much. I'm telling you, I miss those steak dinners. Always a pleasure working with you, Becky. Great messaging. Thank you so much. Simtech Dealer Services, Ontario, Canada. Great
Derek,
people.
how'd you get a steak out of her? All she did was mail me a hamburger. I had to heat it up in the microwave. I don't know.
Those guys know how to eat.
I got to get a better agent, Becky.
Those guys are great to work with. Most managers do not know how to train. They just are desk men. So what do you say about that?
Well, listen, let's not put down they're just desk men. Other than like Babe Ruth and Ohtani, pitchers are pitchers and outfielders are outfielders. But the deal is I've had managers and owners foolishly say to me, why waste time with training? These guys will never get it. I think you have to be not a cynic. You have to be an optimist and put your arm around a desk guy and say, listen, Joe, you're the best desk man I ever saw. Thank you, Larry. But imagine if we just sharpened up your skills a little bit, because like you're obviously capable, then think how much easier your job would be. Because by the time they got to the desk, you've got them in a position where you can really do what you need to do. Again, it's explained just like the dog and the finger, same thing. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. We need your help. I wouldn't turn my back on a desk man, on any of these guys. Everybody can be made better. If they can't be made better, there's the front door. It's been a real pleasure working with you, because it is a business. And if we don't treat it like a business, you'll be out of business. Harrison,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. If it gets dull, doesn't matter what it is.
And okay, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to pivot a little bit more onto a lot of what's going on in the industry as far as technology. And I'm just kind of wondering, so we've had, and I talked briefly about my training. And oh, by the way, hey, Don Brady, I'm not sure if you're still here, but thanks for being here and saying hi.
Hi, Don.
Yeah, Don is awesome. I know you're struggling with your dad, and again, my heart and prayer goes out to you, Don, and your family.
Absolutely.
I know it's been a tough way to go. So, just wanted to say that as well. But I want to talk a little bit about, when we talk technology and what's happening in this digital retailing piece to what takes place in the dealership. And what in the world really is happening with that whole thing, Larry? I mean, are these guys embracing this stuff, or is it still a joke?
Well, I don't want to be generic in my answers, because every dealership situation is different.
That's
There's
right.
places that are so dialed in. I met a guy through Clubhouse named Kyle Mansour, who at that point was with the Nelson Mazda Group. He got me in. I got him 5 techs. I love him. I love their organization. And now he's out on his own with Paul Daly. Man, you won't find a better tech guy than this guy. And then there's people that aren't as good with the tech. But it really, you think about it. When the car first came out, the automobile, there were people that said, that's ridiculous. That's never going to replace a horse and wagon. I knew people that quit the business when leasing came in because it was too complicated for them, or when they had to start using a computer. The technology's there. If you don't embrace it, somebody else will. So I don't want to give you a generic and say nobody is, because that would be ridiculous. Some people are, some people aren't. I like the hybrid idea. I think you want to make sure your people, and I mean all your people, understand the importance and the purpose of technology. But more important than ever, now's the time to also embrace the old school skills of learning how to answer a phone, learning how to respond to people. Can I just give you a really silly one, but it works? Not everybody's interested in snail mail. I still am. I think a handwritten note is a great thing. So how about if I sold you a car today, Becky, and when I'm done, we're closed, you're happy, explained everything. I do 2 things. One, I write you a note, boy, appreciate you, your business, if you know anybody else looking. But I also put a holiday card together and put it in my drawer. This way, if I sell 3, 4, 5, 600, 200 cars, whatever it is for the year, I'm not getting writer's cramp on December 20th. So again, if we combine the old school, the personality, the energy, again, that's why we're back to the word tracks now, not sounding like a robot. What does your son or daughter play? Building interest. You're always asking me, what am I hearing in dealerships? I'm still hearing a customer tell a salesperson, I have 2 kids. And an hour later, I overhear, you got any kids? Yes, stupid. I had the same 2 I had an hour ago. I didn't put them on eBay. They're still my kids. Wait, you're laughing, but does anybody on this call like it when you realize the person you're talking to isn't listening?
Right.
So
Right.
we got to, if you don't embrace the technology, you're out of business. What are you going to use, an abacus and a sundial?
Yeah.
But more important than ever now is the personal touch, is being personable, learning how to convert. A lot of young people, they might be really nice human beings, but they're not understanding how to make a connection. I'm afraid to think what's happened to these kids in school that are masked up and can't even see facial expressions or anything. That's a little
Oh my
scary.
gosh, yeah, that's really a tough way to go. These poor kids, having to wear this mask. I mean, that is a tough way to go.
Hey,
But,
hey,
you know,
I gotta respond to Harrison. Harrison, my hero, believe it or not, is Ben Franklin. I consider him the most accomplished man that ever lived. It's scary what this guy accomplished. We wouldn't have a country without him, the world's greatest diplomat. But he said, and it sounds like a Steve Jobs quote, he said, when you're finished changing, you're finished. You should always be evolving. You should always want to evolve.
so I feel like a lot of that it's interesting because we are been over the past just 3 years alone. I'm doing a presentation on fixed ops roundtable. Yay, guys! Got a panel. We're doing a presentation on with Ted Ings in for the March Magic, and my thing has always been about transition from the finance to the to service and what we can do to do a better job in enhancing that overall experience. And a lot of times it just seems like we just bang our heads up against the wall because we don't do what we say that we're going to do. And I believe that, you know, technology doesn't replace the human factor, does it? To
How
me,
can it?
it enhances what we're doing, and having to streamline this entire process from the time the customer, is in the dealership to when we finalize this transaction in the F&I office. So what are how are we training salespeople to acknowledge this technology sooner, to have a better understanding of that customer earlier on, if they've been shopping online versus starting this deal all over again? What type of practices are we putting in place to help them, to support them, to have a better understanding how to streamline that process? What are we doing?
Well, first of all, again, I keep saying it. I'm sorry, the dog with the finger. What are you trying to accomplish? Everybody understands that the more people, if you have two salespeople and one of them is an amazing person in terms of connecting with people, great appearance, but they don't talk to a lot of people, they'll get outsold by somebody that might not be as good a communicator, but needs to make a living more and gets more people. And it's strictly a numbers game. We need to reach as many people as we possibly can. Now, I guess you can run naked, set yourself on fire in the dealership. That'll get a crowd. But generally, the best way to get to a lot of people is social media. When you combine social media with the concept of understanding the way to get rich in a car dealership is to prospect, is to let people know, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's where again, it's not complicated at all, yet we've made it complicated over the years because we haven't encouraged or held people's feet to the fire. If you're in Ohio or Virginia, you can't write a bird dog or referral fee. But you tell me why in any state where you can write somebody a check for sending somebody in, how can anybody not be busy? We all know thousands and thousands of people. Some say, I don't, but you do. You know everybody your mother knows, your father knows, your sister, your fiance, who you played sports with if you were in the armed services. You know their friends, and their friends. And they all have one thing in common. They don't like car salespeople. If you say you sound like a used car salesman, it's not a compliment. But they love those specific people. Yeah. So on top of the $100 they get, or $250, in some states it's a lot of money. Why would you ever not be busy? So if you're trying to get the most people in and you're not on social media, you need a psychiatrist. You don't need a coach because you're going to reach more people that way. Then you have to understand if you're a robot and you're typing out, I saw this online. I don't remember who did it, but it was beautiful. How annoying is it when you send somebody a message, you take the time to type it, and they respond with a form letter? Looks like you have a situation, and you explain, and then they come right back with a robot.
Yeah.
We got to be, so if you can combine the human, if you can sound funny and interesting, I know what you mean. If we can empathize, but embrace technology, you're way ahead of the game. And it's got to be taught uniformly because, again, these are your troops. These are your people that are going to get into the desk manager. They're going to see, even in times when there's no chip shortages, let the owners make a lot of money. It's got to be, as my buddy Vince said, it seems like hours ago, man, it's blocking and tackling, same playbook every day. Now, leave plenty of room for personality, but I don't know. I still run into people. I still get this nonsense. Well, if I prospect, if I'm on the phone, I'll mess it up. Yeah, but if you do it enough, they walk by everybody else and say, I'm here to see Becky, which is the coolest thing for a salesperson when they walk by everybody else to look for you.
So you're okay. So I think you mentioned that's a good point.
And Katie,
So
you're right on. Katie just made a great point.
yeah,
By the way, we're about 51 minutes in this, and I must be falling down on the job because I haven't mentioned my book. So let me hold it up. It's called, there we go. It's called Inner Moron Demons, How to Avoid Them and How to Live Your Best Life. It's on Amazon. And I talk in there, Katie, you just made me think of it, that it's not just enough to hear, you got to listen. You've got to make sure that it's not just listening so you can throw a pat answer out. You're 100% right. I believe you're pretty close to finishing my book, Becky, and I think you would give it a strong recommendation, which would be a wonderful time to do that right now.
I think your book is awesome. I love your book. I think it's fantastic, fabulous. In fact, I kind of like you too. So,
there's no accounting for taste, but it is
what
a
a
good
winning
book.
combination. That is a winning combination because you know what? I think a lot of times, we need a balance. We need a balance from, and we talked about this, from where we are tradition, to what, like, for example, just because we might be utilizing technology doesn't necessarily mean we can't be writing letters or a thank you note to a customer. No one is saying you can't do that anymore or that you're not sending a video or of some personable nature to the customer. I mean, just imagine what that would do in of itself. Just a note of thank you. I appreciate the fact that you purchased it. They don't get these notes anymore like they used to. That just sinks. That really says a lot, right? So where I'm also going with that is that use the technology for what it enhances to complement the entire sales process, right? And to
Absolutely.
it's all about, let's face it, it is about the trust factor. It is about credibility. It is about streamlining that process. It is about reducing the time it takes to get into that F&I office. And for anyone that would appreciate that, I would imagine that sales associate would appreciate that a lot to be
All right,
able
wait a
to
minute.
do that.
We beat up sales managers earlier. Let me beat up salesmen or
Hold it
salespeople.
up again. David Rosar says, hold it up again, please. And then we've got, okay, let's do that. Inner moron demons. It's a great book.
Dave, the real title is Inner Moron Demons, How to Avoid Them and How to Live Your Best Life. During the pandemic, I said, I'm not going to stare out the window. I'm going to do something constructive. And I started to write a book called Drive Your Life. I know, dumb title. And I got one of my best friends, Alan Tolles, very bright guy, a radio guy, and a woman that had an insurance company for my dealership. Much smarter than me, both of them. And as I was writing the book, Alan said to me, are you going to put something in there about people that don't even try? And I said, Alan, people that don't even try to try must be infested by inner moron demons. Well, when we both broke out laughing, I said, the hell with this. This book is going to be called Inner Moron Demons, How to Avoid Them and How to Live Your Best Life. But keep in mind, if you do buy it, as there's a disclaimer on the show, I'm not mentally ill, but I am a carrier of mental illness. So if I do make you crazy, you were warned ahead of time.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And I think that we do have someone who's already, Joe, certainly liked the book, or he's thinking he just bought the book. He's looking forward to reading it. And so, Joe,
Now, didn't you say Joe had a book too?
No,
Joe,
he
did
just
you
bought
read
it. He just bought your book.
Didn't you had somebody on earlier that you said authored a book on closing? Who was it? Becky?
What?
You
what?
said somebody
I thought you were talking to Joe.
No, I'm talking to you. You're the host.
For Christ's sake,
when I'm on Joe's show, we'll put you.
With you.
It's not easy. I serious ADD.
I'm really trying.
Joe, thank you so kindly. If you like it, if you don't like it, let me know either way. And I'd love anybody that's on this call, and I'd love to speak to you. I won't sell too hard. I like to talk to people. I like to have fun.
And that's the reason why you're on the show, because you know what? We work every single day of our lives, and we just got to make it fun. It can still be fun. We
Wait a
may
minute.
be
Wait a
doing
minute.
some what
You
did I
told me
say?
earlier I'm
No
going to be
fun?
on because you get tax credits for hiring mentally unstable people. That's what you said. I would never start any trouble on a podcast.
Here's the thing. I love having a good time. There is, anyone who thinks otherwise, I do. I really do. I get it. And I feel like we all need to have just wind down a little bit, right? And get that balance on. Utilize some of these tools to help maximize the profits. Let's get back into training. Let's get back to some of the major basics in our lives, right? That really make a difference. And let's not have all these excuses as to the reasons why we can't do stuff. Isn't that what you're saying? Get over it
Uh,
already.
Ben
Have,
Franklin,
have
again,
fun.
those that are good at excuses are seldom good for anything else.
And also, guess who came in? I don't know if he's still here or not because he likes to come in and leave, but we do have Ted Ings. Hey,
Hi, Ted.
Batgirl. And Ted Ings is certainly amazing. And as you know, I already talked about it that I am going to be one of the panel speakers on his next Fixed Ops Roundtable, March Magic. And I'm really looking forward to that event. And I get to talk about what I love to talk about, and that's transition to finance to service and how we can do a better job with after sale opportunity and what's it going to take to get back in front of that customer. And I hope you guys can make it. I think the seats are complimentary, so that's a good thing. So come on in there, and love to have you. So we're yeah. So that's going to be a great event. Vince, got to go. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And
Nice to meet you, Vince.
so in closing, here's the thing. I want you to talk to dealers and our viewers about what should we be doing or what should they be doing to really manage this, to sustain profit today, to grow, not just in 2022, where are we going in 2023 and beyond?
Well, let's just tie everybody together. To get over the chasm that some dealerships have with sales service, what's wrong with having some sales service meetings? You buy some pizza, you get the people together. What's wrong with closing the door with a couple salespeople or one-on-one and saying, let me ask you a question. What do you think I could do better? Because I don't think managers ask that of salespeople. And then say, okay, now let me tell you what I think with you. Everything positive, smile on your face. We can all, I've never met anybody that couldn't do a little better. Man, could I do a whole lot better? But I think
Too.
Here's what's so scary. It's never been as easy to disseminate information as it is now. And it's never been harder to communicate with people. I mean, look at how polarized we are politically and how far apart we are and how difficult it is just to reach people. So I think I would encourage more communication, just more talking. Here's what I'm doing. What do you think I could do better? What do you think you could do better? Hey, what's wrong with sitting with a salesperson instead of beating their brains and saying, what can I do to help you a little more? I really think you've got talent, and I want to make sure that I can help you a little bit more. Not complicated, right? It doesn't cost you anything.
Well, exactly. So here's the thing. I think when a dealer talks about training, they need to think about long term. It's not just this, I don't know, red pill, blue pill, whatever kind of pill. But it's not like a quick fix. I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this whole thing. And it's a matter of, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's really make it happen. Let's really make an impact. One day, 3 days, I think you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. I'd be motivated. I can't wait to go downstairs and sell some cars. But at the end of the day, that wears off after a while. Yes?
It does. Again, I think the reason my training might be a little different than other people's, I plant such strange images in their head that I hope they linger a little bit longer. And I stay in touch with a lot of the people that I train. It's fun. I mean, I'm not at myself in the back. If you help somebody get in the business, you can help them make them successful. Isn't that a win-win for everybody, for you, for them, for the dealer?
Absolutely.
It's got to be win-win.
So one of the things that I'm going to do, just a little plug on myself with training, one thing I do think is monumental is the continuing education piece. So I don't give up. It's not the 3 days, it's not the week training, but getting back in front of that individual, whether it be remote or back in dealership. I try to minimize the cost to the dealer. I feel like that's really important, although they're making all the money now anyway. But that's beside the point. But I want to make it so it's certainly worthwhile, and that 3 a week. That's a lot of content that's coming at that individual. So it's always important. How can we revisit that? What's the best way to have that continuing education? So that way we can keep the message on the floor, right? And the momentum going.
Absolutely. I think that's just a matter of communicating with the dealer, the GM, and explaining what you're trying to do, and say, listen, I'm not working you over for more money. I'm just trying to make sure you didn't waste the money you already have.
Right. I think so too. And I think that's so important. Well, you know what? We went over a little bit of our time, but I want to thank you again. Boy, I can't tell you how quick this time went by. And Larry, it was a pleasure having you here with me today
So
on
pleasure
Black
being
Talk.
here. It was nice to meet all the nice folks that commented. If anybody, hey, always ask for business. If anybody needs techs, body shop techs, salespeople, training that will light your people on fire and will stick, I'm easy to reach. Unless I'm on a plane or training, I always answer my phone, and I always appreciate the next deal. So thank you. And Becky, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you again, guys. It was a pleasure to have you on tonight. And so with that, let's make